Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And yesterday we did 5 teams to clear the EX2 difficulty of the new Ritas beatdown battle to get the dupe of Ritas, and that would be the last one before you start getting her out of the shop with the event currency. But today we've got 5 more teams that can do this. Potentially, if you have access to them, or make a few substitutions. It's all very subjective. But if you didn't see the first video, we'll just go over briefly. The starting hand is 2 green and 4 blue orbs, because you're meant to use a blue stacking team here. Milim herself does have 4 million HP, which is pretty hefty for a new player. Mid-game players and obviously end-game players can pretty easily hit that, but new is going to have a bit of a rough time, so this might be out of your reach for a little while. But she nerfs green orbs, so generally not great to bring a green orb team unless you've got a really, really sweet strategy that I'm not aware of. She's got stun evasion for 7 turns, which means you can stun her starting on turn 8. If you want to cheese the crap out of her, that's certainly something you can do. She has synergy and crit resistance, which does stack up, so I think by turn 8 she has 40% of each, which you can get around, but it does just have to be aware of that. And then Lord's Ambition on a couple of turns where she is completely not debuffable. So don't try and nuke her when she has the status on, because the debuffs just will not take. And then if you go past like turn 10 or something, she reverses her stats and she seals your protection gauge and she heals. So try not to go past turn 10 unless you're going to continue to stun her. But let's go ahead and jump in with the first team. Alright, so there exists, another blue stacking team that specifically gives extra damage against space enemies, and that is technically the Determination to Prosper team. Technically not a traditional stacking meta like what the Spirit Master team is, because Maribel does not raise your skill cap, but you are stacking Weakness Strike with Maribel, unless the control effect is negated somehow by a skill, maybe called Lord's Ambition or something. But the point of the matter is we have a few Earth nuking characters, and we get extra damage against space. So we've got Maribel, Prosper Rimuru, Octogram Lumi, free-to-play Rieger, Lumi, and then Elmezia. So this team is meant to be very defensively focused. Maribel giving us super guard against normal attacks will protect us from a lot of damage. It won't protect us against the ult from Milim, because guard does not get affected by ults. But we can do this. Prosper Rimuru is a single target. While Milim does have crit resistance, it's only 40%, and Rimuru, if he's at full HP when he uses skill, he can lower that by 100, so then we've got a net positive 60% that we can work with, which is better than nothing. And this is a crit-focused team. So turn 1, we don't have 36 skill points because I'm not using the skill point strat turn 1, so we just sent the 4 blue orbs. It's not that big of a deal, honestly, because Milim has the Lord's Ambition effect for multiple turns. Using Maribel a lot only really matters on the very specific turns where you can get some stacks of control. But because she's only putting on 1 at a time, because it's 1 per every use of Maribel, you're only getting 15% right now here. But there's the Super Guard kicking in, we're taking 50 damage. So Elmezia has the HP raise and the Enamor effect, which will not work if she's got Lord's Ambition on, I don't think. Also, it will raise her HP, which is cool and everything, but we're already not going to take that much damage from Milim anyways. And then Lumi, if you need it, has that resurrection / heal for 3 turns, which, yeah, it can work, technically. You don't need it here, at least I don't think I do, if we're taking 6 damage, but hey, whatever. But there is the Lord's Ambition effect, so now, no matter what we really do here, we're not going to be able to apply any kind of debuff, or just effect in general. So we'll bring Octogram Lumi in. We'll start buffing Elmezia up with the AoE buff from Lumi, because that's a 30% multiplicative buff right there, and Elmezia, being an Earth character, is going to take out a chunk of Milim's HP. But you can see that we've used Maribel but there are no control stacks. So we're only going to use Maribel once, because we need the skill point gain on the blues, but there's no point in wasting it twice, because we don't get anything out of it using it twice. You don't magically get, like, triple the extra skill points. You don't get more control, because we don't even get it to begin with, and we can only super guard. It only affects once. Like, we're already guaranteed to super guard, so when the Lord's Ambition effect is live on Milim, just hold off. Just use one Maribel, and then you can stock it up, and then when the Lord's Ambition falls off, like right now, you could now do a double stack of Maribel and benefit off that. Possibly. You can make it work. But here, we're just going to try and do this and try and get the Rimuru EX ult without having to use a lot of points, because we're going to need his EX ult, but also we're really not taking that much damage, so we don't need that. And I also want to kind of reset Lumi's orb change a tiny bit, because this team does kind of get expensive, because you're pretty much using Lumi every single turn. Unless you get a very random lucky hand where you can use the Rieger convert, it's pretty much going to be Lumi, and it's going to get kind of expensive after a while if you're using it every single turn, because Maribel only resets by 10 points passively, so it's a bit rough. But we're very, very close to getting the EX ult with Rimuru. We just need this turn right here, so Lumi can go away, because we don't need her. But the problem is that we have another green orb incoming. So I'm checking to make sure Almizia has the full AoE buff from Lumi, which she does, and then Almizia can go away. And then we can do this instead, where we can alt swap and then full orb change, because Rieger is still a fire or earth character. And then we'll use the resurrection state to ensure that Rimuru has max HP. That way we can get his max power debuff for the nuke turn. So we'll send this, we'll get his EX ult, we'll have a Lumi ult, and 2 EX ults from our earth characters, which is important. And then I don't know if we have the full stacks of the Octagram Lumi ult buff, but it should be enough. So there's us being at max HP, that's great. And now we're ready to nuke. So let's go ahead and bring in Almizia. I think we're fully buffed up, maybe. Maybe we have like 3 stacks of Octagram Lumi's ult buff, maybe 2. Math is hard, I don't remember. But here's the magic attack, and then the extra 150 skill points. That would enable us to use both of the other big-time buffs, the guaranteed crit, the crit resistance. Unfortunately, I had to swap out Prosper Lumi because Rieger didn't have an orb, and it's more important to have both of our Earth Nukers here than having a Lumi ult. So we're going to use Maribel just for funsy onesies here, but 1, 2, 3, 4. Rimuru does 3.2. And Almizia will finish it up with 1.7. And Rimuru does so much more because he has that personal magic attack buff, and he's single target. But Prosper team definitely can get it done within 8 turns, and you are in no danger of dying at all because of the super guard. But there's our first team for you. Alright, the next team is Ogre's Pride, a traditional blue stacking team. The most recent blue stacking team in terms of historical release date, next to the current Spirit Master team. Like, this is the last one from August of 2024. Kind of crazy that we didn't get one after that until now. But Ogre's Pride is stacking Pierce, which you can pierce this team, and just other things with Synergy, which we can kind of negate a lot of the Synergy resistance with Soei's Synergy power. But Violet Orb changing, Almizia is back again for the ult buff because we are running fire units now. Soei for the orb changing and the attack and synergy. And then Momiji and Shuna for their respective buffs. And then Shuna also has the triple ult swap, so that's going to be very, very useful. So turn 1, Soei can change any 2 orbs to blue. Doesn't matter what color they are. So we're going to change these 2 greens and we can get a nice full starting hand of blues. We'll bring our 2 fire units in as soon as I learn how to click things, and they both have some protection traits underneath them, which will enable us to get a double stack of Protector Benimaru, who, for the first 7 turns, is just stacking 10% ult damage, which is not really that impressive. But once you hit turn 8, He still stacks 10% alt damage, but then he gives you a one-turn 100% pierce power buff, which is pretty significant. It doesn't stack, so it's not going to be like 100, 200. It's just going to be 100 on turn 8 and then 100 on turn 9, because it's a temporary buff. But it's going to enable us to do a lot of extra damage there. So we didn't get really a good turn 2, because we got 3 greens and we can't change that. But this hand looks a lot better, so we kind of just make up for it with changing with Soe again. The primary goal is to nuke with both the fire characters. Momiji has the personal fire attack buff, and Shuna has the personal magic attack buff, so they both have their own ways to do extra damage compared to the other. Momiji is AoE, so she's inherently going to do slightly less damage, but only slightly. But otherwise, this team is going to run really, really efficiently. It's just also highly expensive, because literally every character has an 80-point skill or more, and Momiji has 2 of them. So we are going to have to hold at least 1 buff on Momiji, which is going to be the Violet buff, because Shuna already has magic attack. She doesn't need the Violet buff. Momiji does not have a magic buff. So if we can get the Momiji EX ult early, then we could just use the Violet buff on her, send her to the back, and then she can just live back there until the final nuke turn. And we got very lucky here with a natural blue orb hand, so we don't have to convert at all, which is fantastic. So we'll just double stack with Benimaru, we'll use the alt swap for the first time, and we have a full hand of both Momiji and Shuna. So this is probably one of our best runs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, we could use the Enamor, but oh well. We have a Shuna EX ult, so we're halfway, almost, well, not, we're over halfway there, because Momiji is literally right there. This turn, she's going to get the EX ult, and then we can send her away on turn 7, because we need to use 300 points before bringing in Soe and using his skill, because in order to maximize Soe, he needs to have 300 points used before he can double his synergy power from 50 to 100%. And we do have enough points to do that, because we've got Shuna's 80, we've got, or 80 or 90, 8, somewhere around there. But then we have Momiji's 2 big-time skills. We have Elmesia's big-time skill. Those 4 skills, will use that up. And then Soe will be the last character to use a skill. So we'll bring Violet in, we'll use the magic buff and the orb change, boom, and then Momiji goes away for Elmesia, so we can hold that magic buff in the back. So just making sure that we're doing math right now. I think I'm correct. So let's send you away. Let's get another double stack, and then we will nuke next turn when we can debuff, so the ult resistance down from Elmesia actually matters. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. We have maximum points. We have exactly the kind of setup we need. Just need to make sure that we have an orb, which we do. So, okay, thank you for that. She looks like she's hurt, but that's because she had the double HP skill. So let's Elmesia buff, boom, and then let's bring in Momiji for either Elmesia or Violet, doesn't matter if we've used both their skills already. And then we'll use 1, 2, 3, and that is over 300 points. So now when we bring in Soe for Violet, his skill will have the full 100% synergy power instead of 50. Benimaru, 10 more ult damage, but the 100% pierce power. And then we'll go ahead and send this, and Momiji does 5.6 million. So she alone cleared it. So maybe if you don't have this exact team setup, you're missing a few of the pretty powerful buffs like Elmesia or something. Just know that if Momiji can one-shot it with this team, we still had another EX ult in reserve. So you have a lot of wiggle room for damage with this team build. So it's going to be pretty efficient. Alright, another blue stacking team is the old Primal Demon team. The 2.5 anniversary part 1 Blanc and Jean, and then the normal meta Violet and Diablo. This team occupied the exact same time slot that Warriors Mind 2.0 did last month. Or earlier this month, and the power difference is crazy. So Violet is stacking attack on Primal Demons. She also has the multi-skill technique. We've got Diablo orb changing, we've got Misery orb changing, we've got both Jeans here, and then we've got our single target Blanc, who has a bunch of 0-point skills, and the whole point of this team is to use Blanc's skills a butt ton of times, using the multi-skill technique. The issue with this team is that not Violet, but Misery only changes oranges, and Diablo only changes greens. So, turn 1, it's great, because you can use Diablo's orb change, or you could not, depending on what you want to do. But we're going to use the 2 free stacks of Blanc, and then we're just going to send the 4 blues, just in case. Because it'll at least get us Violet, and the next turn, if we get lucky like that, we will still only have green orbs. And now we'll bake back a lot more points off of this hand than we would turn 1 doing that. But the problem comes when you have a turn with 1 orange and 1 green. You are locked into using 2 different skills to orb change both of those, and it gets very, very expensive very quickly. Because there are many, many turns that are going to look like this, where you are forced to use it. And this would make sense. You know, we have multiple oranges, we have multiple greens, yeah. We're going to have to orb change it quite a bit. But on a turn where you just have 1 green and 1 orange, like, no, you can't just use a single skill that costs 50 points. No, you got to use both. Which means that Misery and Diablo are going to start costing a literal butt ton very quickly. On the plus side, even though Blanc is the technical DPS character of this team, Jeanne is Earth, and she's single target, and she's an EX character, and she's going to get not all the buffs, but a hefty amount of the buffs that we are applying with this team. So we do have a type advantage nuking character. It's just that Blanc, with her personal buffs, is going to do more than her in a traditional sense. So let's do Diablo's orb change, let's do some more stacks with Blanc. Blanc's first skill, which is stacking alt damage and pierce power, is more impactful to use than her second skill, because her second skill is only doing attack stacks and then alt gauge increase on blues, which is important to try and get an EX alt, but the attack stack you're doubling up on because Violet is stacking attack. So it's much less impactful to use that than it is to use the double buff skill on the first one, which is alt and pierce. Much more important. But let's make sure to give both Jeanne and Blanc the stacks here. We've brought Visions of Coleus Jeanne because she can give 170% alt damage to this team because everyone is Primal Demon. And Blanc is space, and Jeanne is doing space resistance down by 50%. So that does enhance Blanc's damage even further. So, I mean, it's a well-built team. It's just, it can be unfun to use sometimes if you have to double orb change every single... Like this. This is the perfect example of why this team is sometimes not great. You have a single alt-swapping character, Misery. Granted, you can use her twice because of the multi-skill technique, but then you still have to use a 100-point skill and an 85-point skill just to orb change 2 stupid orbs, which just is ridiculous. So, in retrospect, like, you would probably be better off bringing the new Leon on this team instead of Jeanne. Because, one, you'd be getting a lot more alt damage. You'd be getting 222% instead of 170. And you could change any 3 orb, and it doesn't matter the color. So he's much more versatile on this team, but I intentionally didn't bring him because he's not a Primal Demon, and I'm wanting to run a whole Primal Demon team. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we are stacking up more damage as we go on. We're up to turn 7. And we almost have the Blanc EX alt. We should get that here because we have 3 orbs for her. 4 if we take out Earth Jeanne, who has an EX alt, so that's good for our damage output. So if your Blanc is maybe not 120 EX unbound, and you need a secondary DPS character, Jeanne can get the job done. We don't use her very often, because her use is very niche, but we can find a use for her. So Diablo with his orb, I mean, he doesn't have an orb to bring in if we brought her in for Jeanne, so we can just use the convert, still get the full hand of blues, and even though we're not fully capped out on points, Jeanne's second skill, the full reset, also comes with 300 extra skill points on turn 8, which means that we're going to have plenty of skills. So, we can take Misery out because we're not going to nuke with her. We can use both of Jeanne's alt buffs, so boom boom, and then we'll bring in Earth Jeanne, and then use Diablo's buff, and then we can go from there. So, Diablo buff, 80 points, and then we use the reset plus the 300, and instead of 57 points, we have 357 points. With the multi-skill, that's kind of important, because now let's use the other big buff, and then we can start stacking on all the Blanc buffs that have been reset back down to 0. So again, it is more important to use the first skill of Blanc and pretty much cap that out, and then you add on those extra attack stacks, because the attack is being doubled, but we don't need any more alt gauge, so it's like we're not really benefiting off of that as much as we would with the first skill. So we'll send 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, 5, 6. Diablo does damage 260k, sure. Earthjean does 2.4 million, and then Blanc does 3 million damage. So definitely, we needed both of their single target alts, but we did way more than the 4 million damage that she has as far as total HP. So again, there is some pretty big wiggle room in terms of your damage output that you can get away with. And you could also build the team a bit better as well. Alright, this is a long video, I know, we're getting close to the end. This is the second to last team. It is the Commander team, yet another blue stacking team. And we've got Commander Renard stacking Weakness Strike and Alt Resistance down. Weakness Strike means nothing because we are not type advantage with anybody here. Alt Resistance down will matter once the Lord's Ambition wears off. The team, as I had built it, did not quite have enough power. So we're bringing Blanc. We're kind of cheating, but she's so good. So Blanc for the extra 100% damage increase, and because we're nuking with Dark Diablo, we're going to benefit off of that 140% Dark plus damage resistance down as well, which is really going to help Diablo do a lot. Commander Shizu, full change oranges, kind of the same thing that we had going with the Misery last clip, but also the physical and EX buff. Glenda has the double alt swap and the synergy rate. Diablo has the Lord's Ambition skill himself, the alt rush, and then the personal attack and synergy buff, and then Hinata has the special blue convert, and then the alt damage and synergy resistance down, which I think she does 60%, which means that we're already at a net positive 20, and then Diablo's 40% synergy power is going to add on top of that. So we're looking good. Turn 1, we can orb change with Hinata. The problem is that if you run Protection Gauge under Hinata, you're not going to have enough points to orb change on turn 2 if you need to use her again. Because the multi-skill technique takes over the multi-hit technique takes over the slot where you get 10% gauge increase and you'd make back 50 points. But here, not really that big of a deal because we didn't get a good hand for her anyways. We can use Shizu. Or we just do that and we play to our strengths and then use the free points from Blanc, which will allow us to use the orb change. So this is why Blanc is so damn good. You can get out of just horrible hands and be like, nah, never mind, we're good. So, full hand of blues turn 2 as well. We're looking great. So, it works out. It's just that without Blanc, like, I had the second anniversary Hinata to give that 50% element damage to everybody. It did not do enough damage, because we're type neutral throughout. And the weakness strike stacks from Renard mean absolutely nothing. So we're only getting half of Renard's usefulness, realistically. And Diablo just couldn't do it. He would get close, but he couldn't actually kill. Even with the Hinata EX ult as well, couldn't kill with both of them. So we needed to bring in another big-time damage support, and that is where Blanc arrives. Plus, she makes our life easier, as you saw on turn 2. So now at this point, we have a lot of points, so we can orb change. We don't quite have the alt yet. We're going to get it here, though, so orb change, and then we'll Lord's Ambition anyway, because no matter what, we were going to get Diablo's alt, so you might as well get more of it. More stacks of Renard. Lord's Ambition is active, so you can't actually see the alt resistance debuff. Not a big deal. And yeah, it's more blue stacking. So you are shooting for a Diablo alt and a Hinata alt, especially if your Diablo is not as good as mine with gear. Blanc and her damage buff will definitely help him out, but he might fall short depending on how good your team actually is, or if you're missing some other characters and you have to bring in some lower tier supports. So it is important to attempt to get an EX alt with both Diablo and Hinata. Whether or not that comes to pass is a different story, but that's why we're going to take Hinata out here, because I want to bring her in next turn for whoever has the most orbs, so we can try and get more of her alt gauge. So if like Diablo has 5 orbs, I'm going to take him out, because he has an EX alt, and he has 2 orbs. So, I mean, it's not the greatest thing in the world. But let's alt swap, or no, let's stack, sorry. Now you can see the weakness, alt resistance down, debuff, and then we'll bring Hinata in for Diablo since he has 3 orbs, and then we can use her orb change, and this will get us her alt at least, and it's just we need to get more orbs for her on turn 7, which we don't. But again, if you're a lower end player, you're gonna want to try and maximize that. So if Diablo isn't nuking all the way out, you're gonna need a little bit extra power. So orb change, orb change, orb change. Only one Hinata orb, so we're not gonna get the EX alt for either Shizu or Hinata. But what we will have is enough points to nuke next turn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I should have probably put Blanc in for like Shizu or something, because right now, as the lineup is, someone's going to have to come out. But we also need all 3 of their buffs. The only person that we could take out and have their buffs to activate is Hinata, which I've just been talking so much about needing Hinata's ult. But we're going to have to make that sacrifice here, which I'm confident that we can still get it done. So Hinata comes out, Diablo comes in, we have to use Glenda's skill, and Shizu's skill, and Diablo's skill, and that leaves us enough points to use the Blanc buff as well. And we don't even need to use the extra points, we can just do this. So boom. And now that the alt resistance can be used, because the Drago, or the Lord's Ambition effect is gone, we can now nuke, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4? 4. 427k, and then 3.4 million damage. So Diablo was right on the cusp. If we needed another alt in there as well to do damage. Thankfully we had Shizu for that. Otherwise we probably wouldn't have gotten the job done, even with Blanc on this team. Alright, and the final team and a half would be Reckoning. Reckoning, you can do it on this stage. Surprisingly, they're allowing Reckoning to run for quite a while, so good job. But the full Reckoning team, Masayuki, Hinata, Yuki, Frey, I mean, they make a joke of this stage. If you don't know what Reckoning is, don't worry about it because you didn't play during it. Just know that it's really good, and you can't get the new characters anyways right now. But it is just a passive damage team, and using Reckoning on turn 5, they'll just die. So even though green orbs are nerfed, if you have a way around it to where it just doesn't really matter, then you can do it. So we've got a whole bunch of Reckoning stacks here. Milim only has 4 million HP, so we don't really need to do much here. So let's just go ahead and send this, and then we'll let Milim pretty much kill herself. And then I don't care about her resistance because she's going to disappear with 9 million damage done. So obviously if you have the full team, it's going to run very, very well. But maybe you didn't whale and you have to go a bit more budget-y. We can do something else, which looks like this. So free-to-play Carrion, free-to-play Aaron, free-to-play Isis, free-to-play Shizu. We brought Wind Lumi. She is not necessary, but she will make your life easier because she has the heal skill, which you can use to get more Reckoning stacks, and she has that orb change. And then we brought Guy in the off chance that maybe you need a bit more time and you can't do it, then you could start stunning Milim after her stun resistance wears off. But we actually don't need that here because we are actually able to kill within 8 turns. So let's just go ahead and jump in. So looking at turn 1, we're not going to send any greens. We're just going to send the blue orbs. Okay, fine, whatever. That gets us access to Carrion turn 1. And then turn 2, we actually got a great hand. We only need to use 1 orb change. So we'll do the Isis convert, and then the Isis 50% green buff for 3 turns. And while our orbs are still nerfed by 30%, as long as we can kind of cycle like every other turn, we don't really need to do that much here. But Carrion giving extra skill points means that we can use the heal skill, which gives us an extra 6 stacks of Reckoning when we can use it. Since Carrion's field is only active for 1 turn, we do have to be strategic about when we're healing. Only when we can use Carrion and not any other time before that, because we want to maximize the amount of Reckoning stacks we get. But as long as you can get full hands of greens, I mean, you can cycle it every 2 turns. So it's not great, and it's certainly not going to get like 120 stacks in 5 turns, but it will be enough once turn 5, 6, 7, and 8 rolls around. So here, I mean, we still have the green buff for one more turn, so we'll bring in Aaron for Isis, because we don't need to use any of her skills, and then we'll just use the Aaron convert, and then the Lumi convert, and then we'll use the alt swap here, and that will give us another 3 stacks of Reckoning, for, you know, 1 for each character. We'll use Carrion, heal up, the AoE heal charm is goated for him, use the other orb change, and then use Lumi's heal to get 6 more stacks. And now we're looking pretty good. It's already the end of turn 4, and we have probably about 30-something stacks of Reckoning, somewhere around there, give or take. And so even though we're taking damage, we are healing back quite a bit of it every other turn by using Lumi and the heal charm. So here, let's just orb change with you, and then we'll bring Isis in. I know we need to use her green buff again, because it only had 1 more turn last turn. And then we're just going to go ahead and send this ult, because we don't have enough points to use the ult swap. So let's just get it out of our hand. And we almost get the cycle for Carrion, but because we have the Violet trait underneath Shizu, we are going to get access to Carrion on turn 6. And we're already doing 1,000,000 damage. So, like, we're going to cut off 1/4 of her HP every turn if we just stay here and not use anything else. So, we're going to continue, and we're going to put more stacks on, which means that we're going to do more damage, which means that in just a couple more turns, even a mostly free-to-play team will be able to do at least EX2. Inferno and Dire gonna take a few more turns than this, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. This is just EX2. Our normal orb damage, we're not doing a lot, it doesn't matter. All of our damage is coming from the Reckoning effect. And now we're doing 1.6 million damage. So now we know that she's just gonna die, so we just send 1 orb and then she can kill herself. And boom, 1.3 million damage. Perfect. So there we go. Free-to-play Reckoning and, you know, premium Reckoning team, both very much capable of clearing EX2. But those are 5.5 teams that can clear this out while the game crashes on me. But if you have any other teams that I did not showcase between this video and yesterday's video, please, again, put it down in the comments so other people can try those teams out. But that's it from me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.